you to go back to Europe, where you came from. This is not your land. No, it's not. You've been here 2-3 generations. Compared to us, we've been here millions of years. So get the fuck out of my face with that.
Last night I hopped on Facebook to check in on a couple groups, and one of the first posts I saw was this one: outrageous MAGA teens taunt Indian man, etc. I scrolled past thinking it was just some minor dust-up that didn't really matter, but then I saw another post, and another, and another. This confrontation was the story of the night. If you believe the media, well, first of all, why? But if you believe the media, the story went something like this. There's a march for Native Americans taking place in Washington, D.C. on Saturday, and it just so happens there are also some boys from a Catholic school there for the March for Life. The frigging white male, Catholic, future Brett Kavanaugh wannabes descended angrily, nefariously, insidiously down upon this poor innocent old Indian man veteran. He's berated, harassed, taunted, and he barely makes it out with his life intact, but his dignity torn asunder. This is the biggest white on native crime since the Walk of Shame, Trail of Tears, and these young men must be doxxed, thrown out of school, and punched, because that's what we good moral people do to Nazis, isn't that right? Welcome to the mind of the #resistance. In a professional setting, when someone lies or purposefully omits information to destroy someone else's workplace reputation, that can have serious repercussions for that person. In a family, people who do that are ostracized as deceitful troublemakers and rightfully looked down on. But in the media, lying by omission and engaging in character assassination are how you get the big promotion, the next job, provided your target is a straight white man, of course. These high school kids are firmly in the crosshairs of the media and the resistance for engaging in horrible, supremacist behavior against this poor little Indian fellow. And would you be surprised if I told you that this entire witch hunt is based on, drumroll please, factual omission, selective video evidence, and straight-up deceit and lying from the media? How can you tell when a journalist is lying? His fingers are moving. Today's video will focus on the case of these Catholic schoolboys who did literally nothing wrong. We'll show the video being bandied about as evidence of supposed racism. That's the one playing here in the background. We'll show you the hysterical reaction and outrage from the neoliberal hall monitor moral inquisitors on the left, and then we'll show you what actually happened, demonstrating that this entire witch hunt does not have any factual basis. It is simply an organized attempt to destroy young white men's lives and reputations before they've even really had a chance to begin. All of that and more ahead, but first, a new PC game for you to check out. Vikings War of Clans is the browser game you've been looking for, featuring fantastic graphics, player-driven gameplay, social features, and more. Raid other players, build your civilization, and start an empire all from your browser. No downloads or payments required. And speaking of social features, Vikings has more players than the total population of actual Vikings that ever lived. Gamers, rise up and play with people from all over the world. Gamers can live in a society, join a clan, and benefit from working together. With hundreds of kingdoms and thousands of clans to choose from, your options to forge alliances or create enemies are endless. Best of all, it's absolutely free to play. There are no downloads and it works in your browser, whether you're playing on PC or Mac. Join Vikings for free using the link in my description box today, and you'll get a cool bonus of 200 gold coins and a special item for a head start. Check it out today. Outrage as MAGA-wearing high school kids taunt native elder at Indigenous Peoples March. Boys from an elite prep school in Kentucky bring shame upon themselves and their school. As he played a traditional drum and sang an intertribal song at the Indigenous Peoples March on Friday, Native American elder and Vietnam veteran Nathan Phillips was surrounded and harassed by disrespectful pro-Trump high school students. Video shows high school students in MAGA hats mocking Native Americans during March. Wow. Based on these horrific media accounts of what happened, I'm surprised Mr. Phillips made it out alive. It sounds like these horrible, racist teens were preparing to make American History X look like a walk in the park. That's the impression you're supposed to come away with if you just read the headlines and absorb the narrative. Bleep bloop bleep bloop, orange man bad, high school man bad too. That's where 70% of the population is going to stop reading. They've read the headline, they're not going to look any further. They'll have their talking point for the water cooler conversation on Monday. Did you hear about those racist teens? America still has so far to go to overcome our terrible history. An enterprising 25% will go so far as to watch the video. Maybe they're watching it to see if the story is all it's cracked up to be, or maybe they're watching because they want to add some fuel to their internal anti-white fire. Either way, let's join that enlightened 25% and watch the viral section of the video. Remember, this is all that most people that watch are going to see. Okay, so as we go here, keep in mind that we started at the beginning of the viral section of the video, where the drummer man is already partially encircled by these high school teens. You conspicuously don't see what happened before this, but you'll see that later. That's yet to come. What you hear the kids chanting is a variation of the Florida State University Seminoles football chant. Various other schools use it too. Even when I went to Washington State University, the student section would put the tomahawks up and do this chant. It's extremely common and has a connection to college football bro culture, which is why you're seeing it show up here. Also, notice who the aggressor appears to be. The boys are jumping around and excited, but they're not aggressing upon the man. They're not getting closer. They're not swarming him, pushing him, or even touching him at all. They're getting into the beat that he's playing, goofing around, generally having a good time. So who gets closer? Whomst advances on whomst? Who puts their drum up to a kid's ear and starts hitting it harder in an attempt to intimidate and bully him? Oh yeah, it's the drummer guy. Notice how far away he is at the 36-second mark in this video. It's at least 4 feet. But notice how he steps forward, how he gets closer, and how he puts the drum right up to the kid's ear by the 2-minute and 22-second mark. By 3 minutes and 39 seconds, drummer guy has the drum not even 6 inches away from the kid's face. Who is intimidating who here? Give me a break. Journalists and the left are actually trying to use this encounter as evidence that these boys are all guilty of racism. They should be made to apologize, bend the knee, when in fact they were not the aggressors. The guy with the drum was. Let's see what caved-in head takes our blue check friends are offering up. Quote, I'm willing to bet that 50 years from now, a defining image of this political era will be that smug white MAGA teen disrespecting a native elder and veteran. It just captures so much. The replies here are pretty great too, including quite the snapshot. Wow, bro, deep. Racist white little punks in MAGA hats spawned from the seeds of white supremacists, harassed, mocked, and ridiculed a Native American elder. They were students from Covington Catholic in Kentucky who had just attended the hashtag March for Life. Hashtag Drumps America. Wow, just wow. Instead of trying to own them with facts and logic and point out how race relations today are fundamentally different than they were in the 60s, just acknowledge the fact that whenever anti-white activists see white people, in their minds, they see white supremacy. It doesn't make logical sense. In fact, I'm going to be doing a video about this later on next week. It doesn't make logical sense. You can't own them with facts, logic, and evidence. They are so obsessed with anti-white hatred that they don't realize how obvious they're making it. Quote, congratulations to the MAGA parents and teachers of Covington Catholic for grooming a compassionless batch of entitled racists for history's hall of shame. You will be remembered forever. You'll be remembered forever. That right there is most definitely an implicit threat. They're saying that these boys will have their lives destroyed forever because of what they did here. And they didn't even do anything wrong. According to this person, Charlotte Clymer, I mean, y'all, I lived here for 10 years. I worked in a museum. I have seen some really SC behavior from tourists. But this, the worst I've ever seen. This is not kids being kids, which is a terrible excuse. Anyway, this is criminal behavior. Offending a person of color should be a crime, apparently. As Scott Greer aptly pointed out on Twitter, there is no greater crime than to be rude to a person of color. The Twitter results for Covington Catholic were starting to rustle my jimmies all the way to the moon, and I think you get the picture anyways. The establishment media, Twitter blue checks, and low-level sycophants all rushing to throw their stone while the iron's hot. It's strike. Anyways, now before we end, I want to show you one more piece of video. This one, for some reason, didn't go viral. It's hard to find by searching on Twitter. You pretty much either have to find the original account or have someone else retweet it into your feed. As I play it, think, why isn't this video being linked in articles and news reports? Shouldn't a journalist that wants to get as much information as possible be including, all of the information? Let's watch. It looks like a snapshot video, which is why it's only 6 seconds long, but there is a whole lot of very important information here. Cross-reference the boys' position in the original video with this one. They are right near the steps in the first video we watched, and in this video, they're in the same position. The drummer guy is the one that advances on them, not the other way around. The video clearly shows him walking up to this crowd, being the aggressor, and causing the entire situation to take place. He walked up to them, obviously trying to provoke them and get a reaction. The reaction he got wasn't even harassment. The boys were actually pretty well behaved. They did the war chant, which is a hilarious bit, and one guy got in a stare down with him. That's all, folks. That's the extent of it. I'm going to appropriate black culture here. Don't start none, won't be none. If this native guy hadn't gone looking for trouble, he wouldn't have gotten any. And again, the boys didn't even do anything harassing or provoking towards him. They did nothing wrong. The whole situation is really tiresome but predictable. The facts don't matter anymore, and if you're a good person with a conscience, that should bother you. Journalists are lying to people, feeding false information, and it's having a disastrous impact on our culture. These young men's lives may very well be ruined because of the digital lynch mob being incited by the journalist elite. Freedom of the press shouldn't mean freedom from consequences. And if I, someone that never went to journalism school and received no formal training, can find all the evidence in a case like this, then a trained journalist should easily be able to bring you the full story. In this case, if journalists were actually going to face consequences for doing a bad job, they would be fired for only reporting one side while claiming to be unbiased. But no journalist will be fired for this because their editors and their editors' bosses are not concerned with the truth. They're concerned with pushing a narrative. You have to wonder why that is. Why do they refuse to report the truth? Don't you find it a bit weird that every news story, every cultural controversy like this is always skewed to make the white guy look like the bad guy? Julian Abel was smeared as a racist. The kids in this video are being smeared as racist. Why is the media so determined to destroy white men? Even young white men, high school-aged young white men. Perhaps it has something to do with who owns and controls the media. The rootless, coastal, cosmopolitan elites that hate the working class and rural America and use journalism as a tactic to try to inflict pain upon them, upon us. Or maybe, after all, the Ben Shapiros of the world are correct. And these people are just crazy, illogical SJW libtards that need to be owned with facts, logic, reason, and evidence.